Well, welcome, sir. Next episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
Today we've got Jonathan Kaiser, the one and only, the great and awesome Jonathan Kaiser.
Because we're about, we have three pillars here: faith, freedom, free enterprise.
Right.
And he might be one that embodies all three.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our few guests.
And definitely the free enterprise.
Yeah, free enterprise, for sure.
You guys tell this to all your guests, don't you?
No, not really.
We don't.
Not
But
really. You're special.
I mean, you had a remarkably successful career, and still a young guy, so you've got
I'm just a baby.
a lot of room to go, or a lot of places to go. Anyway, you get the sky's the limit.
Both work.
So yeah.
Both work.
Tell us a little bit about your background for those of our viewers and listeners who may not know who you are.
Sure.
And for the record, you are on TV as well.
Good. So you want me to look at the
So no, you don't have to look there.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Kaiser. Well, I've had an interesting upbringing. The reason I'm from Arizona is because my grandparents picked up their family and drove across the country from Nebraska to Arizona because my grandfather felt called to help the Apache Indians. He felt like they were the most underserved community in all of America, and he wanted to help them. So he came over. He was a missionary, and he translated the Bible into Apache along with a group of other people, started 2 churches, and so my mom grew up on the Apache Indian Reservation. And so that's how when my parents met at a Christian university, Biola, at the time, Grand Canyon didn't have the cachet that it does today. And shortly after they got married, I was born, and then a few years later, the church that they were attending asked them if they wanted to be missionaries in Papua New Guinea. So they picked up our family, packed up all of our things into this huge wooden crate, and shipped us across the world to Papua New Guinea. So I grew up there until I was 11, which was a cool experience. But the downside of that is when we got back, I had this distinction occur to me. I had this realization that for the first time in my life, I realized that we were poor. And my parents had taught me to love, serve, give, help, pay it forward, always turning the other cheek and helping somebody else. But when I got back and I realized, so doing that leads to the poorhouse. Okay, well, I don't want to be poor. So I decided to live a life for me. And I got into commercial real estate after going to UCLA for school. Sorry, I know. That's your rival. I know.
Hey, Terry Donahue.
I know.
R.I.P. That's all I'm going to say.
R.I.P., baby.
Nothing but respect.
Nothing but he was a good man.
Good man.
But when I got back from class one day, and I think I was a junior in college, and I was going to be an attorney because my dad said, Jonathan, you're really good at arguing. You should be an attorney. And that was literally the career direction I had been given. And so my favorite professor, I'm after class at his office hours, and he says, Jonathan, you don't want to be an attorney. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, man, that's what I'm kind of up to here. I said, well, what should I be? And he said, I have no idea, but it should be something more entrepreneurial. I had to go look up the word entrepreneurial. I didn't even know what it meant. And so now here I am, rudderless, not knowing what to do. So I go to this job fair, spam out my resume, and I get a whole bunch of letters back. And I pin them up on this corkboard that I had in my bedroom. And a buddy of mine came over, and he pulled one of the letters off, handed it to me, and he said, do you want your own private jet someday? And I said, yeah, I would like my own private jet someday. And he said, do this. And it was a commercial real estate firm. So I got into commercial real estate because I wanted to make money. And as I got in, I realized really quickly, wow, this is a cutthroat, take no prisoners. It is the opposite of how my parents raised me. But again, remember, I didn't want to be poor like my parents, and I thought they didn't have it figured out. So I became cutthroat and ruthless, but I was miserable, man. And I hated who I was becoming, but I felt trapped because I wanted the success, I wanted the money, I wanted the accolades, I wanted it all, but I still felt, completely conflicted with who I really was. And then 18 years ago, I go to this conference, and this sort of nondescript speaker gets up, and he starts talking about a different way of doing business, a way of succeeding by helping others succeed. By helping others succeed. And I was fascinated. And I said, First of all, I thought, this guy's completely full of crap. Like, there's no way. But I pay attention. I went up to him afterwards and I said, hey, so does this really work? Like, how does this actually work? Because you sound like my dad, help and love and serve and give. And he explained it to me in this context. He said, Jonathan, right now what you're doing is hunting. You got to get up every day, grab your sword. Sorry to all the vegetarians out there. You got to get your weapon, kill your prey, skin it, eat it. Next. What I'm describing is more like farming. So like here in Scottsdale, I have a lemon tree. And when it was little, it didn't have a lot of fruit on it, and it was kind of fragile. And I had to put a little fence around it, and the bugs would try to eat it, and water it all the time and stuff. But now, this thing, I mean, if you guys ever need lemons, just come to my house because I got more lemons than I know what to do with. And he described that as the business model. He said, the more people you help, the more people you invest in, the more people you love on, the more people you serve, the more it comes back to you. And I said, well, man, that sounds like my dad. I go, but if that's really true, then why is nobody else doing it? And he said, because it takes too long. And I said, well, how long is too long? And he said, well, it'll take you 4 to 5 years of reinventing yourself. And I thought, okay, so 4 to 5 years of reinventing myself. I don't have to be in this personal hell of feeling like a used car salesman all the time. I decided to do it. And man, I'll spare you the details, but that was a brutal, long, hard road. I threw my old business plan away. I started getting involved in the business community. I started helping everyone that I could. I asked everybody the same question: how can I help you? How can I help you? And I was helping people find jobs. I was helping their kids get internships. I was connecting people. I was helping other people get business for their own companies. I was doing everything except for what I was supposed to be doing as a commercial real estate broker, which is going and getting business. And meanwhile, my firm that I was with at the time, not the firm that I now run, but the old firm that I was at, they weren't too happy about this dramatic change in production because, prior to that, early on in my career, I was, rookie of the year for Grubb & Ellis nationally. And, people thought I was kind of on a fast track. And now all of a sudden here I am, like I hit my head or something. People thought I'd gone off the deep end. But I could feel it. I could feel it coming. And I could feel that every act of service that I had provided in the community was building something. I could feel the positive momentum of it. I could feel the karma, if you want to use that term. And so I just kept doing it over and over and over and over and over again. Everybody lost faith in me. Even my wife was like, hey, Jonathan, you're not an idiot. You work really hard. But look at our bank account. This isn't reconciling. Trust me, I'm up to something, So anyways, long story short, after about 5 years, just like he predicted, all of a sudden, it felt like all of a sudden, even though it was 5 years, people started referring business to me. And it was business that was good business. And I started, whoa, this actually works. Like these people that I'd asked nothing from and that I had just helped, now it's coming back. You can't outgive the universe, right? And that gave me more to help other people with. So I went from laughing stock to top producer kind of overnight. And now I had a new problem. And the new problem was, now here I am trying to build this culture of selfless service within a traditional commercial real estate firm.
Right.
And that created more and more friction and more rub until one day I was really frustrated. It was June of 2012, and I go to Sedona with my wife. I get up early in the morning on a Saturday morning. I'm down in the hot tub. Nobody's around. It was just perfect. It was like one of those idyllic settings, and I'm staring at the mountains. And all of a sudden it hits me, and it's like, Jonathan, you're thinking too small. I'm like, okay. And I thought, what if you could teach other people how to do what you've done? It's like, okay, yeah, I could probably do that. And then it was like, what if you had an entire firm that all they did was serve and love? I thought, wow, that'd be amazing. I'm like, but I don't know anything about starting my own firm. Like, I'm just a commercial real estate guy. What do I know about this? And then the voice in my head said, if not you, then who? And in that moment, I realized that all of this crazy upbringing from being a missionary kid. I mean, as a missionary kid, I had to sit and watch, in Papua New Guinea, sermons are 4 hours long, and they're in a language I don't speak. So, and I, as the missionary kid, have to sit on the floor completely quiet, otherwise I can't be the bad behaved one. Right. So I learned to watch people. I learned to watch communication that was nonverbal. And I watched as people persuaded other people of very important things like faith. and that plus everything else, and the trials and tribulations at my last firm, and the brutal process of reinventing myself. And I realized that I had been given an opportunity. I'd been being trained for this mission of changing the industry. And then I thought even bigger, and I said, whoa, commercial real estate is not the only ruthless industry. What if I could change the world?
Sure.
So I took out my pad, made a list of all the things I liked about commercial real estate, which was very short, all the things I disliked about commercial real estate, and then all the things I wished would be true, like a utopian view. And out of that, we created 15 core operating principles, launched our firm in January of 2013, built on the mission of changing the industry through selfless service and proving that you don't have to be ruthless to win. And today we're, Inc. 5000 company, multiple years, best places to work. USA Today just named us the industry disruptor. My book just hit #1 on the Wall Street Journal list a couple years ago. So it's just been this extraordinary run, and Kaiser is just made up of just amazing people, just people that care, people that want to serve, people that want to help, people that actually care and want to do the best they can versus just the bare minimum like the industry. So it's been an extraordinary journey, and I feel like we're just getting started.
That's awesome. I feel like, and one of the things that I've felt about you over the years, and we met 2015 or 14.
I would say 14
14
probably,
probably.
yeah. We sat in the Steve Hardison conference room. I remember the meeting.
Yeah. And there's a certain life and energy that you exude, which clearly was a part of that transformation process that you went through. How has that helped you attract the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with that are a part of your culture?
That's a great question in a lot of ways, because initially, so I'll answer it two different ways. Initially, when people didn't know who we were or what we were about, the attraction was pretty pure, right? When people heard about what we were doing. I still remember when we were designing our website and it was filled with our principles and love and serve and all this stuff, That was what we were really about. And I remember my finger was hovering on the mouse over send to send it to go live to our web developer. And I remember thinking, I better just read this website start to finish one more time, just so I can know what I'm sending out into the universe. And I read it, brought tears to my eyes, but I thought, oh my gosh, every other commercial real estate firm is going to laugh their butts off when they read this. They are, screw it, that's who we are, send, And so in the beginning, people were attracted to the purity of the message. But what I found is as we gained momentum and as we built a brand for ourselves and as people recognized what we were up to, we started attracting people that we had to use more discernment on, that were coming because they saw our success and they were really good at acting like they cared about the principles. So that's actually one of the biggest, I think that's the biggest challenge of our effort. I call Kaiser the grand experiment. We're doing something that's never been done. This whole idea of building a commercial real estate firm on 15 core operating principles of selfless service and living or dying by it. At the end of the day, what's been interesting about the pandemic is it's caused me to do some pruning, because anybody can play the game or put on an act for a certain period of time, but when the pressure cooker kicks in, that's when you start to see what really people are made of. So I've made some changes, and having someone like a Carol come on board to lead our retail team is a perfect example of the pruning occurred before then, and it created an opportunity for us to attract the right person. So, for me, it's not been a perfect journey. It's been a learning journey for me of making wrong decisions on people, of one, trying to, in quotations, rehabilitate, right? You either want to live this way or you don't.
Yeah.
right? And then 2 is having the discernment to make the tough decisions when revenue's on the line and saying, yes, I know that there might be revenue that we all depend on from this individual, but they're just not the right fit, and we have to make a change. So, but every time I've done that, I've never regretted it.
So you're talking about not just internally, but you've had to reassess even your customer base.
100%.
So
There was one customer in particular, I won't say who it is, obviously, but there was one customer who was
that's even a harder deal.
Brutal.
I would imagine.
It's brutal. Actually,
Because you think they're talking a good game to you, and then you're like, wait a second.
I personally, maybe it's just me because I just love people and I see the positives in people versus the flaws, because God knows I have endless flaws. But for me, the people, the internal people, the Kaiser people that we've had to part ways with are the hardest. But the customers aren't far behind because, at the end of the day, we're providing a valuable service. And so if people just are doing it to try to take advantage of us and use us like a vendor because we'll give more, that's demoralizing for our people. That's demoralizing for, the rest of our clients, and it hurts the bottom line. So I think part of selfless service is not just helping everybody that asks. You have to have discernment. You have to look at where your service is going to be appreciated, where it's going to have the highest impact, and where it's going to help you accomplish your objectives, right? We're in business here. It's not just, my message is not just do the right thing because it's the right thing. Everybody already knows that it's the right thing to help people, right? I'm trying to connect for people, give and you shall receive, right? Connecting those and saying, I believe that the greatest business principle of all time is selfless service, and that the more you give, the more you get. Now, it's the long game, and you have to be patient, but my life is extraordinarily different than it was before. I spend my time helping, loving, serving, and we have more business than we know what to do with, right? It's just an extraordinary thing. So my message to the world is, the name of my book is You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win. What if, no matter where you are, no matter what industry you are in, what if you could replicate this? And so that's what we do, is we teach through the Kaiser workshops and such, we teach people how to actually implement them in their business for themselves.
Now, what sort of response have you received in these years from, you mentioned the development of your website and how you're about to press send, and the commercial real estate environment will look at this like it's a joke.
Yeah.
So what has been that response from the Grubb Analysis of the world, from the
Yeah.
Cushman Wakefields of the world?
Yeah. I think that, well, twofold. Number one, there's a group of them that still think I'm completely full of crap.
Gotcha.
And I respect that, right? Because it sounds ridiculous. And I totally get that. But there's a lot of them who, when they interact with us, they understand that this isn't a shtick for us.
I guess that would be the cynic sort of response initially. Like, this is too good to be true. This is
It's a good angle.
It's a good angle
Yeah.
to get into.
Well, that's what I
business
thought
with.
when I heard it the first time too.
Sure.
Right? I was a skeptic. So for me, it's like, I'm not, when I started this thing, I assumed that we would be attracting the 20% of the business community, and 80% would think we were crazy, and 20%. And I was good with that. I'm like, I'll just take the 20% that aligns with this.
Right.
What I found is it's actually the opposite. I was actually a little bit early in this whole global movement of what I now call conscious capitalism, that I'm very involved with, by the way. And, we're in, John Mackey, who was one of the co-founders, he is a good friend, and he wrote about us in his recent book, Conscious Leadership, as the one in the, so there's people in all these different industries that are trying to make a material impact like we're trying to do in commercial real estate. And so I feel like now it's much more in vogue to be saying the things I'm saying. But when we started it, it was not.
Right.
Right. And so it was very much in the face. And I had to tell my people, I'm like, look, we're not out to win popularity contests. We're out to do what we think is right. And you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have people that think you're full of crap. That's okay. Right? As long as you remain pure to what you're up to, that's all that matters. And what's been cool is the other benefit of being so over the top on intentional messaging about what you're really about is we never tried to sound like anyone else. So our message is very, very fresh in the industry. It's very unique. And there's been some copycats since we started, but it's still a very, like fresh message. And one of the things that I think is so neat about it is it's like a magnetic force. Back to your question, Chris.
Yeah.
It attracts people like the Carols of the world that are looking for that have been in the commercial real estate industry for 32 years and have never felt like they found their home, their place that was aligned with their values. And then they hear about us and they go, oh my gosh.
They're wrapped up in the grinder.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But it also repels.
And yet their heart is desiring something different.
Yeah, they're conflicted like I used to be.
Yeah.
Right? If this had already existed, I would have just joined it.
Right.
But it didn't. So I had to go create it. But it also rejects the people that are not a good fit in a large part because like a anti-magnetic force, because they hear our message and they think it's squishy or they think it's soft or they think it's whatever, And so do we get it right all the time? No. But do we have an unbelievable group of people that care and that go above and beyond and work as a team and have fun doing it? Yeah. And it's just a cool experience to be a part of because I've never seen a commercial real estate firm like that ever. And I've seen a lot.
Well, it strikes me as fortuitous that at a fairly young age and a fairly early in your career, you decided to take this jump and do this transition because it does. I mean, we live in such a world of instant gratification. The typical person that hears, it's going to take 5 years before you see any benefit. They'll be like, oh God, I'm not going to take 5 years. I need that now.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for doing it, but also, thankfully, it was when you were still early enough in your career that you have a lot of time now to spread that message.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I was just bullheaded and dumb. I mean, there was a part of me that saw the value in it. There was a part of me that saw the savvy business sense in helping people, right? There's reciprocity that everyone sort of gets at a deep level. And I thought, wow, if that really does work, then I don't have to behave this way. I can do what I love doing. And I actually do believe in reciprocity. So there was that. But part of my journey, and I talk about it in my book, is I had to go from looking at service as a tactic to truly just serving to serve. And that was why it took so long. So part of what we teach at Kaiser is we help really shorten that. Right? It took me 5 years because I'm a bullheaded guy that had to figure it all out on my own. But now there's a lot of that when people plug into the Kaiser system, they don't have to wait 5 years to make money because that's a pretty ridiculous business model, right?
Yeah. I do see that, it's amazing you've been able to shorten that time. But I look at my career, and obviously reciprocity is a big deal in politics. But and this is something I say to people, particularly if they work on Capitol Hill, is you've got to treat everyone with respect. You need to love everyone. You are all in this together because it's the right thing to do. And you don't know that intern that you might mistreat is someday going to be the head of government affairs for a big corporation that you're going to need.
Yep,
exactly.
And that was a principle that I lived when I was chief of staff on the Hill. Was I tried to be as loving and kind to everyone that I could because I feel like that's part of who I am. But I also recognize that I need to do as many favors for people as I can because someday I might need a favor.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by there's a practical truth in it. And what I teach is falling in love with the act of service without keeping track or thinking about how it's going to pay back. Because I think everybody sort of gets that. But if you lose yourself in service, now I'm not saying just go stand on the street corner and anybody that has, you have to be strategic, right? You only have so much time. So the question then is, doing what you're doing, the people that you have to naturally interact with anyways, rather than coming to that interaction from a what can I get, You come to it from a what can I give? Keeping no track, leaving. Imagine all the good we could unlock in the world if everybody tried their best in every interaction to help the person across from them. Think about what we could do as a society. And so the question is, why? Why do we not do that? Why do we withhold? And I believe it's because our whole business model, it was built on this idea of scarcity. And I don't believe in scarcity. I believe in abundance. I believe that more begets more. And so as a result, you can't, like when somebody says, hey, don't people just take advantage of you then? I say it's pretty hard to take advantage of somebody that's doing something of their own free will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So by that, I say, within that, embedded in that means service has to be a choice. And this is something I talk about with people all the time. Any kind of, I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, hey, I need you to do this for me. And I say, thank you for the opportunity and no. And they say, hey, I thought you were the service guy. I said, I am. And no. Right? So service has to be a choice. And if you can't say no to a request, then it's obligation. And if it's obligation, it's not really service because it's just a duty. And now you're stuck in the whole thing.
Yep.
And so I think that's part of the problem is people don't have enough, business leaders, like my community that I'm targeting is business leaders, right? This message is good for everyone. But I'm not a pastor. I'm not a guru. I'm a business guy that's saying, look, if I can do this in the crazy cutthroat world of commercial real estate brokerage, you can do this anywhere, right? So if I can show you what I've learned along the way, making more mistakes than not, and if I can teach you and help you get to the place where you can do this yourself and you can create success for yourself, because that's the goal. The goal is showing more people that the more they serve, the more they get, and the more people do that, and the more they experience that, the more that others will do that. Because my goal is a world where people selflessly help each other, regardless of personal gain, not because it's the right thing to do, even though it is, but because they get at a fundamental level that it's their own personal best interest to do so. And that's the fun part, right? The fun part is watching the light bulb go on with people. Even when we serve people at Kaiser, we're the largest independent tenant rep firm in Arizona. We do office, industrial, healthcare, retail. We do work all across the country. Every time somebody experiences what it's like to be delighted by someone who goes above it, I cannot tell you the kind of stuff that comes in. The kind of, wow, your people are amazing. Let me tell you what blank, 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 and what they did and how they did it. So it's that therein lies the embedded self-interest. We're doing it because we want to, that's who we are, and that's what we're all about. But we create these empowered ambassadors where everywhere we go, like back in the day, I used to try to get people to say nice things about me, and nobody would because I was a dick, right? Now, I don't even care, and I walk around and studs like you say nice things about me. Why? Because I have stopped living my life for myself. My life is there to serve others, my people, my community, my family, my clients. And so I think like everything, things are the 180-degree opposite of what we attempt. It's like the more we run towards something, the more it runs away from us. And so for me, this whole mindset is so inherently obvious. We do this in our homes. You love your daughter and son. I see it all the time, right? We know how to love. We know how to serve. We know how to go above and beyond for people. So why is it that then when it's time to get to work, we leave that skill set at home, put on our tough suit, and go fight for number one?
Yeah.
It's like, what if the same skills that we already inherently naturally do that bring us joy and bring us amazing relationships, what if we just applied those in business? And why is me sitting here in 2021 talking about this so revolutionary? Right? I mean, to me, that's kind of insane. This is simple truth across. If you look at, at Kaiser, I built this wall where it has leaders from across across time, across religion, across everything. From Socrates to, you go down the list, to Martin Luther King.
I've been there. It looks
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Right? And
It's
they
really
all
cool.
say the same thing, some version of help others, and it comes back. So all I'm trying to do is it's not like I'm some genius. I didn't come up with it. It was given to me. But I'm just trying to be one of those people that are out living it, saying, this could be you too. And oh, by the way, I used to be miserable, and this is what my life used to look like. And now I love people. People love me back. And it's this extraordinary experience. And I also make good money. Like that to me, if that became mainstream, imagine the business world. Imagine the opportunities. Imagine the experiences people would have instead of everybody being stressed out, you self-medicating, kicking the dog, screaming at their kids. I mean, there's a better way.
Well said. Definitely a better way. What? How did? I mean, when COVID hit and you saw all these things, all businesses, go under. My first thought was, wow, the commercial real estate industry is gonna take a walloping. What's been your biggest takeaway, and how are you approaching as we're coming out of the COVID lockdowns and the challenges?
How did you approach it during?
Well, yeah.
I mean, this idea of service and this idea of caring for your customers, like, I'm sure a lot of them were like, how's this going to work?
Yeah.
There's nobody in our buildings. we don't know what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's good questions. So number one is the commercial real estate industry has and is taking a beating. So that's point number one. And no one's immune. For me, it was a cool opportunity to, one, look for the good in everything. I became like a wartime president almost, Where's the opportunity? How do we help? How do we serve? My book had just hit #1 in August of 19, and so I had booked all these big keynotes for 2020. So all of those got canceled. So I had a lot of time to pivot, and we pivoted instantly. I remember that fated Friday in March, whatever day that was. I remember the following Monday, I woke up with this feeling of, unusual, by the way, feeling of fear in my gut. And I called my coach and we talked through it a little bit. And I saw in like 15 minutes, I just saw, wow, I could make this the coolest thing that's ever happened to this firm. And that's the lens through which I chose to look at everything. So I got excited. And I said, where are the opportunities? And I realized that everybody was frozen. So when everybody's frozen and everybody's afraid, that's when they need the most help. So we put together these webinars and we started just reaching out to all these organizations, all these business communities saying, hey, your members are struggling with trying to figure out what to do with their real estate. Let us give you some free advice. So we went from, nationally we were already making waves, but we went from here to here on the national scene just because we were willing. I mean, I was doing 2 to 3, my team and I were doing 2 to 3 webcasts a day talking about rent relief, navigating commercial real estate in these crazy times. Because we only represent tenants, we were coaching tenants on what they could and should do. Is this event constitute a force majeure? Can you just get out of your lease and all? Right. Like there was so much bad information being floated around that all these organizations were desperate to have us on board, and we just coached and served and helped, and it wasn't like a profitable enterprise, but it was planting so many seeds. And so this year we've been really reaping them, and it's been amazing. But I think the other part of it that has been a challenge is looking at the mental health. And so if you just look at the mental health numbers, whether they're right or not, about 1 in every 2 Americans now is really struggling with some sort of, extreme anxiety or depression. And that is something where that coached with or combined with the fact that they're isolated at home created a lot of hidden challenges. So I looked at my role as primarily, one, to be setting the positive direction going forward, to trying to keep everybody from, losing their minds, and staying in service. Because one of the things that I've found is that pretty much the answer to any problem is love and serve someone else, no matter what it is. If you're depressed, try it. Try taking a video camera out your phone and saying to someone, just saying, "Hey, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. You've meant a lot in my life. I love you so much." Like I can't even pretend to do it, and I'm already feeling better.
Right.
You know, it's like so. There's something about the service mentality that's self-healing, and so I think that's another benefit that we had. But again, like I said in the beginning, it also helped us identify who were those people that truly were good long-term Kaiser fits. So we've been able to make some good changes, hire some amazing new people. Oh, that's the other thing. We were able to hire some amazing new people that wouldn't have been available before, because before it was like you had to have an office in that market. You had to go, set it up and da-da-da. Now it's like I just go into a market and I just hire a person and they're amazing. They can work out of their house.
Right, sure.
So it also changed how I look at expansion. But it's still, if you look at commercial real estate, the pandemic has created, typically commercial real estate follows a downturn, an economic downturn by 6 to 9 months, but all of the stimulus, it has extended that. So we're still projecting that by the end of the year, there's going to be a decrease in values, a decrease in rental rates. That combined with the fact that just the whole nature of work has changed.
Yep.
Most companies are doing more hybrid now, taking less space than they did before. So we're helping a lot. That's part of what we're doing is we have this whole consulting arm where we're helping organizations figure out how they should look on the other side of this, because there's no one size fits all. You have to think about your culture. What are the personalities of the people doing it? What are the roles they need? What do they want to do? You have to build all that into a customized solution for the client and then build a real estate environment around that. Right. So it's actually made it more, companies are being much more intentional about their space, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the future, but there was definitely some tough days. I cannot
imagine.
tell you how many projects were put on hold or canceled or whatever the case may be. But it's like you just lean in and trust that just the more you serve, the more it comes back.
What you describe is really interesting in that it's a type of post-traumatic growth in some respects. I do some work with a veterans charity called Boulder Crest Retreat and Boulder Crest Institute, and the science that we help veterans with is this idea of post-traumatic growth, that if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And so taking a traumatic event, accepting it for what it is, not for what you want it to be or what you think it should be, but for what it is.
Love that.
And how do we then grow from that? And you grow from that through service.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we teach is the veteran community is that just because you're a veteran doesn't mean you stop serving.
Amen.
It doesn't, just because you left the military doesn't mean that you can't be a service to others.
That's beautiful.
And the same thing can be said in business. Just because we're in a downturn or just because we're having to pivot to a new way of doing business doesn't mean we stop with the culture, the centerpiece of what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I think what you
That's a good point.
the concept of sticking with your principles in the crisis only strengthens, I think, the resolve in making that message stick. I mean, this was clearly just nuts for so many people.
Oh,
Well,
so nice.
I think that it brings back so many ideas of my former life and what we would preach the same sort of principles, and that is, what are we selling really? I mean, we're selling somebody else's product. It has all these features, benefits, it's all great. But at the end of the day, you're selling the service that you can bring to that person. Oh, and by the way, I would tell my people this all the time. You walking into that Circle K, and this has nothing, no disparaging to Circle K, and talking with that manager and spending time with that person means more to them because of who you are and the company you represent than anything maybe they'll have that day.
Yeah, it's true.
And I got more compliments of our people, of what we would used to do, if our people had more time just to spend with serving those other people in whichever way they could.
Yeah,
So-
that's beautiful. There's a
And it's rare. You don't have companies. I mean, because to your point, it's so cutthroat. It's about so much about results, about the data that you're delivering,
Yep.
versus the hearts that you're changing.
yeah. I think one of the things, Sean, that you said that really resonates as we think about the current environment we're in is, people are longing for a mission today. People feel lost. People feel, last year was the year of panic. This year is the year of fatigue, post-traumatic stress, exactly what you described. And everyone's making changes because, one, they've had time to sit and think this is really what I want to do with my life, or they associate that organization with the pain they've just been through and they want a fresh start.
Right.
But I think the reality is that people are yearning to get excited about something again. They're yearning to be up to something big. They're yearning to have a mission that they're thrilled to be a part of. And so that's what I love. Our mission is the same. We're going to change the business world through selfless service. Come hell or high water, that's what's coming when you talk to a Kaiser person. And it is so invigorating to be surrounded by like-minded people up to the same mission as you're up to, collaborating, working together, trials and tribulations. I mean, I never once claimed this would be easy. I never once claimed this would be a downhill path. I mean, this is a higher calling, right? It's a higher calling to do business, in my opinion, the right way, loving and serving people, ethically, et cetera. And again, we make a lot of mistakes, but it's owning those mistakes, right? If we make a mistake, we don't hide it, pretend that it's somebody else's fault, blame the other person. It's like we own it. But that's why people appreciate us. Because oh my gosh, we made a mistake here. Let's fix it. And they go, that's the kind of partner I want to have.
Can you imagine if politicians did that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It would be life. You talk about changing the world. I mean, and
Can it be done though?
I think so. I mean, it sounds completely absurd right now in this day and age with how much vitriol there is. But politicians always follow. They never lead. So if the business community and other people make these changes, start to change the culture in that regard, the politicians will have no choice but to follow. I mean, it's not necessarily any disrespect to the politicians that we know, but they're not leaders because they have to be voted in. So it's the classic, see where the mob's going, jump out in front and call it a parade.
I've never heard that before. That's funny.
So I think it can be done. It's going to take more than 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but as you've, what you went through in your own life, and then you're projecting that out to the commercial real estate industry, which you're having some impact, obviously, the greater business community, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But it will trickle down.
And I think I totally agree. And what I say all the time, I'm curious what your thought is in the political world, which, by the way, that is the last. I would never get into politics. I still don't understand how people do it. I'm grateful for the ones that do it for the right reasons. But for me, what I'm trying to show is the self-interest embedded in service, the self-interest embedded in helping other people. So at some level, people are people, and whether or not as a society we're ready for it, I don't know. But to me, authenticity and vulnerability is the name of the game in today's world. Part of what people appreciate, what they say they appreciate about me as a leader, is I'm never afraid to say where I screwed up. And oh, by the way, I do it a lot.
Yeah.
You know how many times I call up somebody after I was a little bit gruff and I go, dude, I'm sorry. I don't know why I was so grumpy. I'm sorry. Can we do that over?
Yeah.
It's like, giving them an explanation for why I was justified in my anger or my whatever it is. And they're like, I didn't even notice you're grumpy. But I knew, you know what I mean? I wasn't treating them with the love and the service. So, there is a possibility that in every walk of life, if people see that the more real they are and the more they live their lives to help other people, the more it comes back to them, that inevitably you have to see shifts across all elements of society. And,
Right.
Maybe that can bring us together as a country. Maybe it can bring us together as a world. I sure hope so.
We need it.
We definitely need
I mean,
it.
there's just no question that the path we're on now is not going to work. It's not
destructive.
sustainable.
No.
Not sustainable.
And I have good friends. I mean, I'm an independent, right? I have friends on both sides. I see both arguments. There's truth in all of it. But the problem is we're so polarized that one side demonizes and believes the other side's evil, and the other side demonizes. And so how do you find common ground? I mean, neighbors that are spitting at each other in conversations. It's like, man, aren't we all Americans? And even beyond that, aren't we all people?
We're all people.
We're all
Yeah.
people.
We're humans.
We're
Yeah.
human beings. Like, just love the person.
I mean, it might take an alien invasion to get us to be together. but until then, we need to be following your example.
But you still have hope in terms of, I mean, maybe this is a contrarian view. I don't know. But you have certain politicians that take this idea of service, take this idea of serving their constituents no matter what party they're in, and do a really good job with it. And they make it a priority of their office. They make it a priority amongst their staff. And that culture gets permeated, hopefully, within the district.
Yeah.
Now, it's been our experience that there's only a handful of folks that really do that and do that well. And it doesn't matter. It's not a party thing. It really is a reflection on the member.
On the individual.
And what they want to achieve. And I think those members are the ones who, they might have a tough race here and there, but at the end of the day, they're going to be drawing folks from all over saying, you know what, I had this issue and they helped me and it was great and my experience was wonderful. It was far beyond what I expected.
And a perfect example, you'll appreciate this, having been an intern for Deacon Cini. When Shattuck got elected and we were setting up the district office, his comment was, I want to be the Dennis Deacon Cini of the delegation. And I was like, what? He was a Democrat. What are you talking? And he said he was absolutely known for constituent service. Yep. Anybody that contacted his office was going to get.
Yeah, that was the hallmark of what Dennis, I mean, that was drilled into all the interns as well.
And I think, I mean, I appreciated where Congressman Shattuck's heart was on that, because he didn't care what the issue was or who the person was. He was their representative, and this office was going to help them. And so we had a real amazing culture of service for the 14 years that I was there. And it did exactly what you said, is that there were Democrats who voted for John Shattuck every time because of some constituent service.
It gets into the culture,
Yeah.
depending on the leader and the people he or she has around them, and hopefully it becomes part of who they are.
May I comment on that? Because I think you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, what we teach within the Kaiser Institute is reinvention from the inside out, right? So 3 levels of reinvention. You start with yourself, because like Gandhi says, you got to be the change you want to see in the world. So you start here. That's the hardest part for most leaders. Leaders can see the value in having it in their organizations, and they can see the value of their interplay in the community being that way. But when they look in the mirror, that's when it becomes a challenge. And a fish rots from the head, right? So you have all these organizations where they say one thing and the leader lives another. And truthfully, that is the hardest part, because I am a ridiculously imperfect human being, right? I am not. I always say our 15 core operating principles are aspirational, and thank goodness, because otherwise I'd be guilty of violating them daily.
Sure.
But they're aspirational in the sense that we're all trying to get better at those things. So the journey of becoming a selfless leader, which is what we teach, is not an easy path. It's simple to understand, but to actually implement is not simple.
Well, I think this is what it was transformational for me. was when I got to the point in my life when I realized, yes, I'm imperfect, I have flaws, and I need to own those. I don't need to gloss over them. I don't need to whitewash them. I don't need to not talk about them. Because there was such, I grew up in a very strict Mormon household, and I played that part, and I was very active in the church for many years. And there was just this expectation that you do no wrong. And if you do, you don't talk about it. And it wasn't until I took a step back and said, I can't be truly happy and find actual meaning and fulfillment in life unless I own my shit. And once I did that, I had some big changes in my life, but I found real happiness as a result of that.
And I think I love that story. I think part of the reason why leaders don't behave that way is because they don't actually see how it is in their own self-interest. I think everything comes back to embedded self-interest. And so if the stuff that we teach our kids, if the stuff that philosophers talked about and religious leaders talked about, if all of this stuff, which if you boil it all down, it's love and serve other people, right? If that's all true, then it can't be true in one place and not true in another place.
Right.
So the same thing that gives you fulfillment, joy, excitement, happiness, like the squishy stuff, the stuff that business leaders don't want to talk about, like if that gives you that much joy in your personal life, why the hell wouldn't you do it in your business life?
Right.
So to me, it's just so inherently obvious. I just don't think that enough people, see other leaders modeling that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that imperfectly, but that's part of the perfection, is it's imperfect. But two, that are teaching other people how to do it, right? Because you could see it as a vision. When I wrote the first rough draft of my book, I called it Disruptive. And there's still a few.
I still have a copy.
There's still a few floating around out there. But I just printed 3,000. I gave it to friends like Sean, looking for feedback. And what the number one piece I heard is, this is visionary and it's exciting, but it doesn't give you the how. So that's what we did, is we took a whole bunch of how and embedded it in the book, which became You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win. And so if more of us are willing to, one, model this behavior, like to me, John Mackey is one of my greatest heroes. I mean, an organization like Whole Foods, built on service, built on culture, all from a guy who is arguably the most selfless person I've ever met. But he's not weak. He's not soft, right?
Right.
But he is so selfless, and he cares about everyone else, and including the environment, including animals. And I mean, like, the guy's got the biggest heart, but he still is a very successful entrepreneur. And there's a whole bunch of these companies and organizations and leaders that have congregated around this conscious capitalism community, which is why I love it. Because when I walked in, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's other people like me here. And so the more of that we can, whether it's through conscious capitalism or not, the more examples of leaders that are doing it this way and are not afraid to say this is what we're doing and are willing to plant their flag and say this is what we stand for, and it's not just BS words on a wall, it's ones that they're personally willing to be accountable for, that's where I think we enact change. And then the only other point I would make on that is, as a lesson learned, it's interesting when you start a company that's based upon very clear principles, because what you see happening is what you see happening across every set of principles, whether it's religious or philosophical in the past, is people start to weaponize them, right? They start to use them as ways to point out the flaws in others versus to self-improve. So I had to have a very stern conversation with our team last year as I saw that developing, like, people, these are not designed for you to judge someone else. Let them worry about themselves. Let me worry about them. Why don't you worry about you? Because for everything you come to me and tell me how they're not being principled, name it, you're probably not being principled, name it. So worry about yourself. Focus on you.
Take the log out of your eye.
Take the log. Remove the log. Don't worry about the speck.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing an act of service have an impact on someone else, and then realizing that actually puts food on your table. That is the coolest thing. The fact that I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Like, sure, I talk about commercial real estate topics all the time. Sure. Yeah, of course. But what people really want me to talk about is culture, is service. How does it work? How do you do it? And that's really the joy. That's the joy, is helping other people experience joy, fulfillment, success, satisfaction, contentment in their own lives by learning that they can have everything they ever wanted if they just give it everything away.
Yeah. So you had a baby during the pandemic.
I did.
As we did. How was that going?
Awesome.
Keeping you young.
Cutest thing I've ever seen.
6 months old now?
6 months. Yeah, little sailor. Yeah, I literally feel like a blessed person. And it doesn't have anything to do with what I got, what I get, what I've accomplished. It's the experiences that I have. I was just out the other day, and my wife likes to make these sweet comments to me. She's just being nice, but sometimes I take them to heart. And she said, Jonathan, everywhere you go, like, sure, there's people that know a lot of people, but that's not you. Everywhere you go, you know a lot of people that love you, right? That you're like constantly hugging people. And my kids notice that too. They're saying, Dad, like, is that one of your best friends? I'm like, no, but I love that person, you know? But the interaction is as if I grew up with this person. And it's like, that to me is, that is my joy. It's the relationships. Everything else is nonsense, right? How much money in the bank? Who cares, right? People that you love, that would do anything for you, that you do anything for, spread out all over, that every time you have an interaction, it's joyful and exciting, and you're like, how are you doing, right? And then, oh, by the way, they also send you business that you get. I mean, it's just exceptional. And if everybody got that, and if everybody actually lived that way, think about what we could do as a world.
That would be amazing.
We would eradicate so many of the challenges we have. If we could just unlock the good, if we could just stop fighting, if we could just stop like figuring out how everybody else is all screwed up. Like, what if we just said, man, we're all doing the best we can do.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, they're just a human like you going down this thing called life. They're not bad. You're not bad. Why don't you just figure out how you can help that person? Some of the people, I have friends that people go, how in the world are you guys friends? And I go, how are we not friends?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they're a human. I like that about them. I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you're from. In fact, I actually like it a little bit better if you're an interesting person that brings life experience to me that I'm not familiar with, because that just grew me as a person.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to a radical idea, and that is, you know, that we're all children of the Most High. And if we cease to see one another in that way, then we're missing the miracle.
Yeah, it's
And
that's
how
interconnected.
I've learned to look at it. I didn't look at that before. I relate with your story, especially early on. I mean, it was the relentless pursuit of more.
Yeah.
And leaving the house with a mask and feeling I had to be one way at the office and another way when I got home. So that's I think a lot of leaders.
Metaphorical mask, just to be
Yes.
clear, because it
Yes.
is pandemic times.
Yes, a metaphorical mask. But so many leaders, so many CEOs feel like they have to be that way.
Yeah.
And if they would just surrender
Agreed.
to this idea of service,
And that's really the good word for it. Surrender is a good word, because you have to let go.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's hard to feel like, I remember at my peak, I was doing 50 to 55 acts of service personally a day. Because every single person that I sat down with, I would try to find 3 to 5 ways, and I tried to err on the side of 5. 3 is the magic number, by the way, for anybody listening. If you try to help somebody one time, it's pretty good. But 2, you're getting there. 3, there's something about the power of 3.
Sure.
Once you do 3 unnecessary, kind, generous acts for someone else, you've just shifted. It's like you can feel the power in the universe shift. You've just created something there between you and that person that's really special. And I've found that those people then tend to replicate that with others. So it's a ripple effect.
And that's the beautiful thing. Part of that is it's a contagious ripple effect that is why it has the power to change the world, literally, as we extrapolate this out. I mean, that's why it's important.
Yeah. My kids and I were watching the Suns game the other day, and a commercial came on about like helping other people and doing the right thing. And my kids were like, I wonder what this is for. Like, who's the guy paying for this behind the scenes? And it came up and it was just like, something for a better world or something. And I'm like, that was awesome. Like, that was amazing. I don't know who that was or what it was, but that was cool.
Foundation for a Better World, I think.
Something like that.
Foundation for a Better Life or whatever.
I just feel like this stuff is not
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This stuff is not squishy. We're in a hyper competitive, take no prisoners, winner take all kind of environment. And people throw everything in the kitchen sink against us, trying to beat us in the marketplace. So it's not like this is some like sitting in a corner humming, meditating, and it's the real world that I live in. Sure. And we win some and we lose some. But the reality is that I believe that what I need is given to me precisely when I need it. So I'm utterly peaceful and trusting in the present moment, right? Like you said earlier, Sean, loving what is. Byron Katie style. It's like, why would I be in resistance to what is? That's insanity.
Right.
But that's what everybody's doing right now. Everybody's in resistance to what's going on in the world. What if we just accepted it? Doesn't mean we can't do something about it, but what if we didn't, masochistically self-torture ourselves about what's going on in the world and the news and collapse of building here and war over here and this and that's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad in the world, but what you focus on is what you become. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be angry and upset and frustrated and stressed out all the time? We only get one time around this, we only get one run at this deal.
Yeah.
This isn't a warm-up life.
Well, and it really and if there's been anything that the last year and a half has done is because of the pandemic and because there was so much bad news and because people were cooped up inside and all they could do was watch TV, I think it just exacerbated that.
Yes.
Everyone just completely like closed in and lost control.
Yeah.
But you
lost control of their own life.
That's a great point, because you know what I'm finding? I actually, this is more of a question for the group. Like, I'm finding that now that people are out, now that people are finally getting out after a year of being cooped up, they don't know how to act.
They've lost some social skills.
I mean, people are angrier.
Yeah.
They're meaner. They're more in your face about almost anything. And I witnessed this at a Diamondbacks game several weeks ago. Everyone was just on edge about every little thing.
Everybody's stressed out, man.
And it's a sad commentary where
Yeah.
we are.
Just
and
need to shut off the TV.
that's why we need more of
Well, I think what you just said,
this idea of service.
Yeah, that, and what you're letting in is what so I could read the news first thing in the morning, or I could create who I'm going to be regardless of what's happening outside of me.
Exactly.
Right? Because I believe that I create myself every day. Here's who I choose to be, regardless of what feedback or non-feedback I get. Right? I choose to be this, not whatever tells me. Most people are reacting versus being proactive. And so shut off the negative. Right? Only engage. I refuse to say anything negative about anyone. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't speak ill of anyone. Sometimes I slip and then I correct myself. Because I don't want that kind of energy coming out of me.
Right.
And because that becomes me.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing to say, but it's so true. It's like, I remember the first time I did the 30-day positivity challenge. And I did that as a company and it changed my life. I had no idea how much negative I was speaking. It was mind-blowing. And then I said, well, what's the next level on this? And I thought, what if I looked at everything as a gift? So that's the way I live now, is everywhere I go, I look for how whatever occurs is a gift. And sometimes it's hard to find. But if you force yourself to look through that lens on everything that happens, whether it's you win the lottery, gift, whether you're stuck in traffic and you're going to be 45 minutes late to your meeting, gift. Your mom gets cancer, gift. Like if you bring a mindset of this is a gift. I may not be able to see why, but I'm just going to be grateful for it, and I'm going to send positive mojo. It's unbelievable, because at the end of the day, all we have, Chris, is our experience.
Well, what you're talking about again is this radical idea of surrender,
Yeah.
and accepting the fact that control is an illusion,
Yep.
and so how we are in ourselves and how do we are towards others. That one hello that you give to one person in the morning might be the most kind, generous thing that person receives all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never know how that's going to affect that person.
Yeah.
And I've always remembered that for some reason. And so that's, but it's, I'm really involved with the Halftime Institute. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Buford and the book Halftime. And that's this idea that you go from the first part of your life trying to build your success.
Oh, yes, I have heard of this book.
And then you reach a point in your life and you reach this point early on where, how do I become more significant? Like, what is my legacy? What is my purpose? And some CEOs, some leaders make that transition, but the real task is surrender. That's the secret sauce, and it's probably the hardest thing for people to learn.
And it's a daily thing.
It
not
is.
something-
Oh,
It
I've
is.
surrendered, and so
Right.
now it's easy. It's
No,
like,
no.
it's a daily thing.
It is
You have
so
to
hard.
express. Yeah, you have to. You view everything as a gift. My version is I demonstrate or try to do a gratitude practice. I do gratitude practice every day, but try to see the things as the things that I'm grateful for. I mean, I try to view everything through the lens of gratitude.
Yes.
What what do you have any daily practices by life hacks, anything, tips that you would offer up?
I mean, I think everybody's different, so I'm always really cautious to say, hey, I got the world figured out. So these are for me, but I have my created declarations that I revise constantly, but they're who I decide to be in any given situation. I call them my I am statements. So anything you say after I am is a command to your body to become that. So I will never say something after the words I am that's a negative thing. I would never say I am. I can't even say it.
Right.
Whatever you want to fill in the blank. So everything I say is from that place. And so for me, I look at it as putting on a set of glasses. So when I'm waking up in the morning, well, one of the cool things about Microsoft Word on your phone is that it actually reads it to you now. I used to have to record it in my voice, which is still good, but since I change them constantly, I'm constantly updating them. I love it. I'll just tap play, and while I'm waking up, it'll be me describing myself, who I choose to be. And so that's one. Two is the not speaking negative about anything or anyone, never complaining. I have no complaints, right? Like, no matter what's happening, and people say to me all the time, like, man, you've had a lot of hard stuff in your life. And I go, well, that's one way to look at it, right? I feel like my life is full of blessings.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I dance on butterflies and roses all day. I live in the real world. And I also really try to prioritize keeping my headspace positive. And part of what that means is I don't hang out with negative people.
Yeah.
I don't engage in gossip and, negative talk about self or others. And when I start feeling down, which is natural for everyone, I have certain things that I do. So for example, if I feel off, I'll either go work out, because there's nothing like a workout. I'll get in the sun. That vitamin D makes such a difference. I will send love to other people. Again, the magic 3, right? I'll tell 3 people how much I care about it, how much I appreciate it, and all of a sudden I'm feeling better, right? Or I'll fill my mind, or all the above, or I'll fill my mind with something that is encouraging, right? Something like if everybody went out and read Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, like every time I'm feeling really like, oh man, things are tough, I go listen to that book and I'm like, oh man, everything's fine. It's all good. So, having a routine to keep you from spiraling. And I think what most people do is they don't, and they just follow that spiral. And then who knows when that death spiral is over. So having mechanisms to quickly get you back into your mindset, are a few things for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good advice.
That's great.
We could go on forever.
We
but
could.
We've
Yeah.
been at this a while. We got to let you
Good.
go.
But where can people find you? Like if they're loving what they're hearing, what can they do?
Kaiser.com, KEYSER.com. So many companies need advice on what they should be doing on their real estate right now. We'll give you a free look. We'll just give you some free advice. If you're interested in the book, you can go to Amazon. You can go to ruthlessbook.com. Oh, let's slur my words. We're also doing a lot on the Institute side and on the workshop side. So in addition to, if you need somebody to take a look at a lease or help you figure out your commercial real estate situation, if you're interested in learning more about how to develop a cultural selfless service, just call us. It's 602-9-KAISER, 9KEYSER, so that's our main number. Call us and we'll get you in touch with people from our institute. But again, the best thing you could do out of this talk is just find ways to love and serve other people, and just be intentional about it and stick with it. Don't quit.
Awesome.
That's where the value comes.
No question. Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Pleasure
thanks so
was
much.
mine.
Thanks
Hang
so
out
much.
with these two studs. Man.
Great to have you here. Thanks again.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
having
you.
me. All right. Thanks, everybody.